Here it is, part 2 of my top 10 fan theories. Once again, this order will go, I'll say what the listing, I'll say what franchise it's from, and I'll give a vague description of what it is and go into more details as I talk about it. And I'll put the time code for each theory down in the description box. So here you go. Number 5 is from Super Mario Bros. 3. Action! Action! Now, one theory that I usually really hate are it was all a dream. I don't like those for the most part because they come across as very lazy to me. But I do like this one. It's a variation of it was all a dream, but it's a good variation and it has some good ideas and good thoughts, because the fan theory is that Super Mario Bros. 3 is all just a stage play. That none of it actually happened. Well, it did and it didn't. So the idea is that Super Mario Bros. 3 is actually a recreation, a stage play exaggerating the events of the first Super Mario Bros. Game. So you can see why, because it has the 8 castles, it has the different enemies and the very similar enemies with the Goombas and the Koopas. Not to mention you have the different items that Mario uses, and he saves the princess at the end. But in Super Mario Bros. 1, Princess Peach Toadstool, whatever you're going to call her, has brown hair. In 3, she's a blonde. And so it's a little change. Not to mention you have in the original games or all the other games, the platforms are suspended and they're just there. Whereas in 3, you see the wires hanging each of the platforms, even the ones that fall apart. You see the wires and the bolts in the background, just like a play. Not to mention at the beginning, a curtain comes up and Mario enters from stage right. And so it's kind of a cool thing. And what's really cool about this fan theory is that Nintendo came out several years ago and said, yeah, it was all a play, but it's still probably the best NES game around. It's one of my favorites. And so it's a lot of fun, and it's a nice little fan theory that I hadn't thought about until it was pointed out to me, and I read about it, and I was like, yeah, it doesn't make sense. And then Nintendo came out and said, yeah, it's true. It was a stage play. Still a great game, though. Number 4 is from The Dark Knight. So this fan theory explains something about the Joker, and this theory is about how he gets his scars, and it's a pretty interesting one. There are several theories, but this one is my favorite, and I think this when I think about how this version of the Joker became the way he is, I think this would be the best way to do it. And that is that the Joker was in the army infantry. His unit was blown up by an IED, and shrapnel cut his cheeks, so he has a smile on his face. Maybe they were, I'm thinking maybe they were black ops, and so when they died, they were completely disregarded by the U.S. government, and he received no compensation and no help from the government for what happened to him and his crew. So that now he's suffering from PTSD and he has a vendetta against government. And so now he's going to take his revenge on that system. It would explain why he's so good at making explosives, why he's so good at using things like rocket launchers and small arms fire. Not to mention, it would also explain why he's so casual about killing people, because now that he's basically just completely warped from his time in a war zone. Not to mention all the crap that he's gone through. He's basically like, life is meaningless, just he can just shoot his own gang members just without any sort of hesitation. Not to mention, it would show his ability to think ahead without a plan. He even says, do I really look like I got the plan? But he doesn't need one because he knows his enemy. He knows if I go here, this is what they're going to do, and then I can do that, and I don't need a plan in a sense. And it's really interesting, and so it adds a different layer to the Joker than what we had before, and it kind of makes him even scarier because basically the people in that world created the Joker. And I think that would be kind of Christopher Nolan's style. He's not a very I guess magical thinker in a sense. He's more like very concrete and trying to figure out like the minutia and why things are, and instead of that they are. So that's kind of why his movies sometimes don't know how to deal with things like emotions, but he's very good at the details of why. So I'm glad he didn't explain why the Joker became this way, but I think this is the way he would have done it if he were to have shown us how the Joker became the Joker. So yeah, those are my thoughts. Number 3 is from multiple movies. The MCU. What? Do? This movie, this fan theory idea comes from all the MCU movies, and it is about everyone's favorite part of the movie, Stan Lee. And it was such a fan theory that's been going on for years, and basically Marvel has confirmed it. I'll tell you what I mean. So this fan theory goes that Stan Lee in all of these different movies, going back even to the first X-Men movie, is not playing a different character in each one. He's not. He is playing the same character. He is playing the Watcher. And the Watcher, for those who don't know, are a group of beings that just, as the name implies, watch a universe. They don't interfere. They don't do anything to change anything. They just watch and observe and basically write down what happens in that universe. They write down like in their mind. They don't actually like pad and pencil it. But I like this idea because it explains why he's in all these movies. Not just, oh look, there's Stan Lee. He's just being Stan Lee, doing his Stan Lee thing. But actually, like, no, there's a reason for him to be there. He's just observing all these things going on, and he's making sure that this is what's happening in these universes. And when I say that Marvel basically confirmed it, they did so in my favorite cameo of any of his, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, where they show him on the moon in a spacesuit, and who is he with? He's with Watchers, other Watchers. And he's telling them, there's one time I was a delivery person, and this came out right after, this came out after Civil War. And what was he in Civil War? He was a delivery person. So he's telling them, I was a delivery person in this moment in Civil War. And so, yeah, he's a Watcher. He is a Watcher. In the comics, the Watcher's name is Uatu. But I don't think they're going to call him Uatu in the movie. But I really hope that when they finally end the MCU, or maybe at the end of Infinity War, this part 2, the after credit scene or the mid credit scene shows him on the moon just standing there and watching what's going on. So that would be cool to see, and I really hope that happens. So number 2 is from Aladdin, my favorite Disney movie. And this is from Aladdin, Whole New World. So this one is about the genie. And this idea of the genie and the merchant. So the theory goes that after the events of the first Aladdin movie, we see Genie just going off into the world after he gives Aladdin a hug, and he just goes off in the world doing his own thing. But in the movie, Robin Williams voices both the genie and the merchant. Not to mention, both of them make references to stuff that would not be in that time period of maybe the 700s, or maybe no, it'd be like more the 13th century. Yeah, probably the 13th century. Considering that there's a lot of Islamic rituals, and Islam didn't start until I think 800 AD. So maybe it was about 13th century. So yeah, it is about the genie being the merchant. Not to mention, he just tells the story of the lamp and what happened, why the lamp is so important. If you were freed from 10,000 years, maybe even more, of imprisonment, and somebody finally freed you, wouldn't you tell everyone that story? And wouldn't you want everyone to know about the tale of Aladdin? So that whole thing, the setup for him making those products fail in a sense, they're there so that the genie or the merchant has the excuse to tell us, the audience, his tale of his freedom. And it's a good theory, and I like it a lot because it adds a depth to this of why this character is just, he is a kind of a throwaway character, and he's just like, we could have done without him and started the movie a different way. But the fact that he's there, and now we know things like, okay, he's there to set up the story about his own freedom. And I like that a lot. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Disney a number of years ago, when they put the Blu-ray out of Aladdin, actually confirmed that, yeah, he's the genie. And so, really good story. People have taken this thing even farther and saying that he was influenced by Jasmine, pretending to be a street rat, and now he's pretending to be a street rat or a street merchant. And so there's a lot of connecting threads to it, but I'm going to stick to the ones that I've heard the most, and this is the one I heard the most, and I like it a lot. But it is not my number one fan theory. It was for quite a number of years, but I found one more that I had to put as number one. And that is my favorite Harry Potter fan theory. And that is, meet the Potters. So this fan theory explains my biggest question, and questions like my brothers who read the books, and even a couple of my cousins, like they read the books, and I was like, why are Harry and Ginny together? As I said, I don't like them together, and they were actually on my top 10 worst romances, other worst romances. And so the theory goes that Ginny poisoned Harry. Simple as that. That Ginny, because she poisoned him using a love bug or love drug bug. What the heck am I talking about? Hear me out here. Now her brothers have in the books, and I believe even in the movies, sell chocolates laced with a drug that makes a person fall in love with the other person. Basically your name in it. I'm trying to remember how exactly how it works. You buy it, maybe you make sure that it comes from you to that person, and then the person that eats it, they are now totally infatuated with you. And it explains why Harry suddenly, just like that, is now infatuated with Ginny, and why he wants her, even though he had really regarded her as a sister almost earlier on in the series. And so some of you think, well, she would have to keep poisoning him, wouldn't she? That is possible, but maybe not, because Harry already cared about her. what she's doing, just manipulating that emotion, that feeling for her, into thinking that maybe he did actually love her, using that potion that George and Fred made. There's also the idea that it's not Jeannie, it's Mrs. Weasley doing it on Jeannie's behalf, because Harry is always there. She really likes Harry. She thinks of Harry as a son, so she would want him as a son. So she poisoned him so that he would be with Jeannie and she would have Harry as a son-in-law. That's something my brothers have thought of too. They expanded upon this as well. And so this one doesn't get talked about enough, I think. And I think it needs to be spread out like that. No, Harry was supposed to be with Cho Chang, but Jeannie or Mrs. Weasley or someone poisoned Harry so that Jeannie could steal Harry away from Cho Chang. And explain so much of why they're together and why there was no resolution between Harry and Cho. And why all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he's now with Jeannie. Yeah, I mean, it makes so much sense. And every time I've told this to someone, I've had the exact same reaction. That makes so much sense. That explains it so much. It's like, exactly. So please, let people know about this fan theory about poor Harry Potter being poisoned by the Weasleys. So, man, fan theories, huh? There's something else. So, what is your favorite fan theory? Let me know in the comments. What do you think about these other fan theories that I've shared with you? Do you agree with them? Or do you think I'm crazy to believe these? Or do you think they're just fun little distractions and little things that people think of? So, for that, that's all for that list. And I'll see you next time. Bye.